Hi, everyone. So far, the biggest story of this year of global importance is the new pandemic, Disease X. Previously, the disease was unknown. After all, it was called Twitter. Don't forget, this is a comedy show, and my name is Elon Musk. Hello. Whether this Disease X is the new plague is unclear as of yet, but ever since COVID-19 hit, experts have been agreeing on one thing. This pandemic and Taylor Swift songs were quite similar. In other words, there's more to come. Rampant antibiotic use leads to antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Add to this extreme population density in large cities. Finally, everyone goes to the bathroom with their phone, and hardly anyone washes it afterwards. That's right. Today, we'll be talking about healthcare. No, it's not because Wall Street is forcing me to pee in a cup more often than Hollywood stars getting accused of sexual misconduct, although it does feel like a daily occurrence. What I really want is to take a closer look at various healthcare systems across the world. But first, watch this video. What's the takeaway? First, I'm getting old. I'm starting to get hung up on animal videos. Second, animals, especially highly socially developed ones, care about their wounded brethren. There's a belief that the start of human civilization was signified by the moment when we started nurturing our old and sick instead of abandoning them. A lot of time has passed since that moment, but the attitude towards the sick is still one of key aspects of a developed society. Some countries care about the weak and the old. Others force them to run for second presidential terms. For instance, Japan, the country's third economy with a strong industrial sector and rich culture, has free healthcare. France and Germany, economic powerhouses of the European Union, scientific and industrial hubs, also have free healthcare. Even the Russians have free healthcare. Although that one is understandable, if your country is known for AK-47s and vodka, well-being becomes a priority. Even Iran has free healthcare, although they've spent the last 40 years deeply sanctioned, forced to drive and fly, barely functioning vehicles, so held together only thanks to Allah. Even those guys care about their sick and elderly. What about the United States? You know, the richest, most developed country in the world? Right. Instead of caring about health, we've made it a source of profit, but that's not the only issue. While behind me is a poster for a sitcom set in the world of American healthcare, the reality of it is no laughing matter. And I'll prove it to you with statistics. I know, what a snooze fest, right? So I decided to shake things up a bit, and these figures will be presented by the one, the only, Jason Statham. We're the biggest healthcare spender in the world, but if we look at life expectancy rankings, we're not even in the top 10 or top 20 or top 30. It's like being the only sponsor of a beauty pageant and then sleeping with the girl who took 40th place.
I'm smiling because I'm not a Yank.
To sum up, we're number one when it comes to spending on healthcare, but we die sooner than our neighbors up north. You can't really blame this one on climate or cultural differences. Canadians are basically Americans who simply wear flannel shirts. Given our spending, we should have become a nation of superheroes by now, but the reality is much more depressing. To make things worse, it's not enough just to keep the population somewhat healthy. Today, 2 out of 3 bankruptcies in the US are caused by medical debt. In other words, people have a choice, either die or become homeless. Two-party system at work. Ladies and gentlemen, take a good hard look at these faces. You might have seen them at your latest visit to the hospital. So what do people do once they find out how much an ambulance ride costs? That's right, they resort to self-medication or just ignore the symptoms and get on with their day. So why does this happen? Let's look at the prices for medicine across various countries. What do you call someone you can sell something to 3 times its price? Apple fanboys, or, just suckers. I can't afford to be a sucker. I have 10 kids. If their dad's business ventures go the way of Twitter, they just might lose their health care. And even if you do have health care, it doesn't cover all the costs, especially if the doctor's job is not to cure their patients, but to peddle expensive medicine. Jason, you're up. You think healthcare profits are invested back into R&D and is spent on perfecting drugs? The US Department of Health doesn't care about that, and it hasn't cared in decades. Out of 253 drugs approved by the FDA since 1992 using the fast track process, 1 in 12 did not have proven clinical benefit. I know I'm aging myself here, but 112 out of 253, Carl? Then there are antidepressants, painkillers, sedatives, and a bunch of other happy pills, which doctors can prescribe for basically anything. Back in the day, lice and worms were disgusting, but inseparable parts of daily life in America. Today, it's prescription drugs. If you, for example, trip and fall and happen to lose consciousness, you are at risk of waking up and finding out you've gone through every imaginable test and screening and got prescribed everything but contraceptives. After all, there's got to be a lot of suckers to make sure the money-making machine doesn't stop.
I'm smiling because I'm not spending my money. I'm spending American money.
Mr. President, why is our healthcare so expensive?
It's easier for me to pretend that I have dementia than to answer the question. I mean, I'm 80.
We live in the world of capitalism, and that means if something happens, look for those making profit. Things become crystal clear if we add a few words to this phrase. American doctors are primary beneficiaries here. Not only are their salaries up there, but receive significant kickbacks from pharmaceutical companies. That's the best medicine against the guilty conscience. Of course, there are doctors, and then there are doctors. Some risk their lives in COVID-19 wars, while others get rich on the ailments of their patients and then share the profits with the government. Over the last decade, practicing physicians and healthcare providers paid $26.8 billion to make federal charges go away, charges that include fraud, bribery, and putting patients in harm's way. Thanks to the American legal system, they not only avoided jail, but also kept their jobs in the healthcare industry. You can call it lobbyism, or you can be an actual human being and call it bullshit. It is because of these lobbying efforts made by pharmaceutical and health insurance companies that the American healthcare system is like a superhero in a densely built downtown. Instead of solving problems, it's only making them worse. This lobby is so powerful that even the mighty Amazon could do nothing to disrupt the status quo. In 2017, the online retailer tried to revolutionize the medicine market, and just 6 years later, it turned into a simple subscription shipping service. Imagine Steve Jobs promising to revolutionize the smartphone market in 2007 and ending up creating a few new phone cases.
Yeah, it's more of a letdown than Meg 2 the Trench.
While doctors, pharmaceutical, and insurance companies are making profits, everyone else is paying the price. That's the American healthcare system in a nutshell. If it participated in an election, it would never make it to the second round. There are countries out there with great life expectancy and the citizens actually enjoying the healthcare system. Let's pretend we're carrying political leadership and forget about the United States for a bit. For example, in Japan, prescriptions are made out for particular active ingredients, not brand name drugs. That means pharmaceutical companies can't lobby doctors. In Sweden, medical expenses over 106 euros are paid for by the government. In Australia, governmental health care includes all household members, even if only one person is employed. The healthcare system in France is considered to be one of the best. Mr. Macron, how did you manage to pull that off?
It's not difficult. After all, we can look at Americans and do the opposite of what they do, unlike foreign policy.
Yeah, in the early 1960s, Switzerland tried to adopt some of the aspects of American healthcare. For instance, they allowed insurance companies to make profit on health insurance. So insurance companies immediately started dropping unprofitable clients, which led to some citizens not having any health insurance. Their numbers eventually grew to 5%. A scandal erupted, and the experiment was abandoned. Fast forward to today, Switzerland is the country with the second longest life expectancy and takes 131st place in obesity rates. Well, people can just stop being sick. That way, medical corporations and doctors won't be able to turn them into cash cows. But don't forget, this is America, the land of opportunity. To make sure there is an opportunity to make money off of patients, there's a very effective tool. It's called the U.S. food industry. Those who can't afford expensive healthcare definitely don't shop at Whole Foods and farmers markets. They get their food from here, and here. And those who did buy healthcare eat at the same venues, since now they have to save up money any way they can. Cheap food is made up of sugar, salt, and profits made by food companies. The latter pay for so-called scientific research and lobby for their products being available in supermarkets and even schools. If you can't see it by looking out the window, just look at these stats. The United States is the country with most obese citizens among high-income countries, and it's 12th overall, with only tiny island nations, and Kuwait leading the list. If you have free time, read up on how American Samoa became the fattest country. It's the story of how the US started flooding it with turkey tails, which even Americans refuse to eat.
I didn't enjoy being a Yank. I couldn't even see my crown jewels. Know what I mean?
The U.S. approach to healthcare is similar to its attempts at curbing military spending. Can't do it ourselves and won't let others do it. Mr. President, do you know why Americans are so fat?
America is a huge country. So Americans need huge houses, huge cars, and huge bodies.
Now back to the countries who actually care about their citizens and their nutrition. Mexico, with the US serving as a bad example, decided to ban soda and fast food sales to minors. You can't bring junk food to Canadian schools. Same goes for New Zealand. And they even have special lessons on nutrition. Spain has daily menus which state what kind of food children are required to bring to school. India, Hungary, and Denmark, and some other countries imposed so-called fat taxes on unhealthy foods. Overall, it seems that everyone, except for the United States, try doing something not to make IBS into the leading economic sector. What's so dangerous about it, and why am I mentioning it just now? For the first time in the last 30 or even 40 years, the US finally has a worthy economic rival. I want to figure out whether we can take on China in the short run. Or, in other words, when should our family pack our things and move? What does healthcare have to do with it? Well, in 20 years, when our rivalry will be at its height, America will be represented by these people. And China will be represented by these guys. Somehow, I don't think we'll be competing in hot dog eating contests. Here's the life expectancy in China and the States over the last 50 years. Did you know that American life expectancy has been declining for 2 years straight? I know, Chinese statistics. Like Chinese cars, you resort to them if you have no other choice. And yet the quality of life in China is increasing as well. And as Warren Buffett's relatives say, the richer a man is, the less he wants to die.
Mr. Xi, why is life expectancy in China increasing?
When you're busy with work, you don't really have time to fill up on McDonald's.
So the world's richest country is on the losing side because it's unable to curb the greed of its corporations. If someone came up with the Ouroboros today, that's what it would look like. Yeah, circling back to the start of the program, if a new pandemic hits the world, its impact on the United States will be more severe, more expensive, and more deadly than that of COVID-19. How do we change the system which was built over several decades and which is protected by an impenetrable bunker of pharmaceutical lobby, health insurance profits, and legislative loopholes? The system was tackled by Barack Obama, but all he managed to do over his 2 presidential terms was Obamacare. Basically, it changed nothing and only increased the burden on the government. The system couldn't even be dismantled by Donald Trump, unlike the population's belief in democracy. It's a challenging task, so I'll employ the help of a person who knows everything there is to know about U.S. healthcare. So, Jason, how do we go about fixing American healthcare?
We couldn't think of anything